how the night goes and whatnot. But my name is Dan Gordon, owner of Flashfire Industries. So thank you for joining me tonight for this endeavor. This kind of started, I've been doing a few of these, maybe one or two a week, and Greg asked me to do one for his Fire One class. And I know a bunch of you guys are here. And, I thought it was a great idea to open up to anybody. So for those of you that didn't read the flyer or anything, that's kind of the background of what tonight is. But just, be wary that we're keeping it basic tonight. So we're going to kind of assume nothing, start from the ground up, which is a good thing. We're going to go over buildings, layouts, occupancies, things like that. We're going to talk a lot about victims tonight. Some of I don't want to call it survivability profiling because we're going to assume that we can rescue anybody inside of the building, but kind of maybe talk about areas that we may want to concentrate on, especially in low manpower situations. And questions is probably the most important part of the night. So if any of you guys have questions, please ask them. There's a couple ways you can do that. Number one, you can raise your hand. I think not literally, but figuratively through the program, there is a button on your screen that you can raise your hand, and then I'll call on you and you can talk. The other thing that you can do is there's a chat panel, so you can open that up and just type to me. It's only going to go to me, so you don't have to worry about everyone seeing what you're typing or whatever. Here's the chat panel. I'm just typing to you guys now. So that should pop up. So if you have any questions, you can, just type that to me and it'll just go to me. I know I also have some experienced guys on this panel. So by all means, please, chime in. It's impossible to cover everything tonight. It's impossible to probably even cover one of these topics tonight in depth. We're going to kind of scratch the surface of as much as we can, and kind of work from the ground up and see how you guys like it. So any questions you have, let me know. The other thing, as we go through this and we talk about, various private dwellings and whatnot, we have to remember that private dwellings are inherently private. And so therefore we can't assume anything when it comes to these houses. So we're going to talk a lot about, basic layouts and what the generic layouts of these houses are. But don't be surprised if you see things out of the realm of possibilities, or you already have seen things, from alarms you've gone to or from your house. So without further ado, basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw up scenarios, visual scenarios with active, fire, smoke in various types of houses in various locations. And then we'll run through it, everything maybe from a first in report to some basic tactics. So what we are going to generally assume tonight is, we're not going to get into tanker operations or anything like that. And most of the fires that we look at tonight will be able to be handled with the water that we put on the road. And I say that regardless of the department, because generally the ones that have a lot of hydrants, even those are putting, at least 2,000 gallons of water on the road. I'm using kind of 3 to 4 engines of 500 to 700 gallon tanks. So even without any hydrants, you're putting almost 2,000 gallons on the road. And then a lot of the rural departments that may not have hydrants, they're putting on probably upwards of 5, 6 or more thousand gallons of water on the road. And all of these fires tonight could probably be knocked down with less than 1,000 gallons. So for that argument's sake, we're not going to say, I'm not going to go in because I don't have water. That's a whole nother story. But we will talk about some different staffing and things like that. So any questions you guys have, let me know. So I'm going to start off. You guys should see a building or a house with some smoke. Someone give me a thumbs up so I can see that you guys see the screen. Good. All right, perfect. So what we have here, does anyone want to either throw in the chat window or just say out loud what kind of house that we think we're looking at here?
Single story residential.
Okay, so 2-story residential. I'm all right with that. Anyone want to be more specific about a type of house that we're looking at?
A ranch, one-story ranch.
Okay. Anyone else?
Single story.
Well, a lot of times we're going to roll up and we're not going to know. Um, and that's why, what do we have to do? What do we have to do in order to find out exactly what we're looking at?
360.
360, okay? Size up, and to go along with that at 360. So in this case, we're going to continue doing that 360. If you get to the side, you actually notice that there is a second story on there. Not something that we would typically find with a ranch. Looking at the front, you guys are absolutely right in terms of the window layout, that it's most likely a ranch because you have that one large bay window and that smaller window. Capes, generally, you'll find symmetrical windows on either side. So this is kind of an oddball from the A side, but once you start looking around on the A, B, and C sides, it's a fairly standard. But I don't, that's not something you would know other than looking around and doing your 360 and going around. The other thing, guys, is when you guys unmute yourself to talk, but when you're done, mute yourself because any background noise, everyone will hear it. So this would be more standard of a cape. But from the A side, I think you're more than justified calling it, thinking that you have a ranch. But if you did call it a ranch and you started doing your 360 and you realized it wasn't, that may be something that you want to update to command or dispatch so that everyone's on the same page. And that's going to be a common theme for me tonight, is making sure everyone's on the same page, because nothing will make a fire go south worse than people being on different pages. So we'll talk a couple of things. One guy said 1.5 story. One person said 2 story. We could have this debate all night. Does anyone want to kind of throw out reasons that they might think it's a 1/2 story or a 2 story? So
was probably an attic.
Right. But so if you were up there, so it is probably what I would call an attic. We'll go to the other side. What does that look like? A regular window or like a louver vent, kind of, if you will? I mean, it's a regular window. So do we have to assume with a regular window that space could be occupied or finished?
Yes.
I would say yes. Now, if you want to make the argument that's a 1/2 story, that's absolutely fine. The reason why is, it's not, the square footage of that second floor is not going to be the complete square footage of the first floor. So as the roof kind of comes up like that, it's reducing the amount of square footage. Most likely there's walls that come down here that create voids in here called knee walls. I'll show you that in a little bit. But so that you could make the 1/2 story. Now, if any of you guys are going to call a mayday and you're on that floor, where are you going to say that you are?
Second division.
You're going to say you're on your second floor, second division, or whatever. So no one's actually going to say that I'm on the 1/2 story. And so that's where it kind of gets a little bit fuzzy, in my opinion, because you may call it a 1/2 story from the outside, but if you're the incident commander, you're going to tell someone to bring a line to the second floor. Even in your size up, you may say I have a 1.5 story, but no one really says fire on the 1/2 story. They say 1.5 story fire on the second floor. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. Now, I think saying a 1/2 story can lead towards a better size up for some people coming in, meaning that they kind of know that it's not a full second floor, that it may have some void areas that need to be examined and things like that. I guess what I just want everyone to be is on the same page. And I'm not talking about on here with the 40 people we have here. I'm talking about in your department. And I think it's a valid discussion that needs to be had in a lot of departments, so that when you say a 1/2 story, everyone knows what you're talking about. And when you say a 2 story, everyone knows what you're talking about. Through these classes, we've had a variety of opinions on what a 1/2 story is and what it isn't. And I don't really care. They're all right and they're all wrong as long as you're doing them in the same department. If my department, one guy says a 1/2 story and another guy says a 2 story, we got a problem. If everyone in my department says a 1/2 story and everyone in another department says 2 story, then we're good because we're all on the same page. So that's the most important part, is being on the same page. So we've done our 360. Do we have any evidence on our 360 of victims? So what? Let's back up. What are we looking for on our 360? In this case, obviously, we want to see any smoke or fire. Or do we have a ranch, or do we have something different? What other things might we want to look at on a 360?
Cars in the driveway.
Okay, so cars in the driveway may lead to us assuming someone's home. What else might we want to look at?
Toys in the yard.
What, toys in the yard? Okay, that could indicate children, sure.
If you hear a bark,
Yeah, I mean, just anything that we hear from inside. You may have someone trapped in, in this room, and fire in that room. And so any known life hazard you would want to look for. So a known life hazard would be someone that you see or hear, or a report of someone inside from a credible person. So credible person may not be the neighbor that says, I haven't seen them in a few days, but certainly if the mother meets you out front and says, my kid's inside, then that's going to be a known life hazard or a credible report of someone trapped inside. The other thing that we really want to be cognizant of when we're working our way around on a 360 is what I say, we want to look for the lowest floor of fire. So very obviously we have fire out of this second floor window on the B side, but we want to be very careful and be very sure that we don't have fire either on the first floor or in the basement. On a cape, it's going to be a little less likely that the fire is traveling in the wall. I see an old friend here, DeLibro, and I know that we had, Ruth Street right on White Plains Road. We fought that fire on the first and second floor for a long time, and there was a little part burning in the basement for a few hours. And it wasn't a lot of fire. We were probably lucky that it wasn't more. But the last thing we want to be doing is fighting a fire with uncontrolled fire below us. And so we want to be cognizant and make sure that if we're going to go right up to that second floor, that we don't have fire burning somewhere below us, okay? So that's going to be something very important. And as a first due officer, you may just make a quick look at that, but certainly following up, I think a safety officer, that's a big part of their job, because they don't need to meter right away. They don't need to worry about that. But they should definitely be worrying about, okay, we're fighting a good fire on the second floor. Is it possible it started below and is working its way up? So that's something at least we want to take a quick look at, especially if we have basement windows or something like that. So that would be some of the big things on the 360. Known life hazard on a second floor fire like this, we don't really have to worry about various ways to enter the building. If this were a basement fire, one of the big things I'd be looking for are my alternate access points to the basement. But again, I'm not too concerned about that in this case because I clearly have a fire on the second floor, okay? On a cape, what might we want to look at on the rear side of things? What's a kind of an important thing we may want to take a look at? Second floor of a cape. What might we find, might not we find? I'm gonna actually pause this quick just to screen share because I want to go. But some of the different additions that can be done to a cape. So don't worry about the fire now. We'll get to this one later. But we want to look at this for the dormers on that second floor, okay? So we want to know, was this second floor added onto? Do I have a larger area on the second floor? Or is it exactly what I see from the front, okay? So that's something that we want to look at as well. Well, let's talk layout a little bit on here. So we're looking at this from the A side. From what we know, someone mentioned power lines too. That's always a good one, absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't see a couple of guys in the chat. Roof windows or points of ventilation. So sure, in this case, we have a fairly well ventilated fire, but I want to know, as a first due engine officer, assuming that my tactic is going to be to stretch a line, I just want to know, is there something here that's going to deviate from my tactic? Meaning, am I going to see something in the back that says, let's ditch that line and do something else, like someone hanging out of a window or a fire in the basement or fire on the first floor or something like that. Those are the big things that you should be looking for as a first due officer. If you're a chief, maybe there's a few other things you're looking for. But obviously anything out of the ordinary in terms of, what you might see with wires or propane or any of that hazardous nature type things. Okay. So we've done our 360. We have no known life hazard. I would say that 90% of the time for an upper floor fire, probably more, 95%, that first hose line is going to go straight into the front door and up the stairs. Okay. For a few reasons. Number one, it's probably, well, this one may not be, but most likely it's the door that's used most of the time. And in a cape, where are we going to find the main set of stairs? Right in front of the front door. So we're actually
Front door, yep.
we're going to go to our last slide. This is not an exact replication of the house that we're looking at, but this is a very standard cape layout. So this is the first level. You come into the front door here, and the stairs are usually right in front of the front door, maybe a little left or right, but usually right in front of the front door. Whereas if I took my foot and wrapped it around the door jamb, let's say it was zero visibility, and I took my foot and wrapped it around the door jamb here, I could probably sprawl myself out and reach and get to the stairs. Okay, so if it was zero visibility, that's a good way to find the stairs if you don't have a camera or something like that. So rather than come from the rear and have to find the stairs and probably make a couple different turns, we can come straight to the front, find the stairs, and go straight up to the second floor. So obviously it's going to take time to stretch a hose line. So what do you guys think, if we have 2 guys or 3 guys, that officer may have to help stretch with the hose line. If you have 4 guys on the rig, which would mean a chauffeur, 2 guys in the back, and the officer, as an officer, I will probably try to take a look inside on this first floor and do a quick primary search. Do not discount the fact that someone sitting in their kitchen or dining room, with their headphones on, playing a video game, has no idea that fire's ripping on the second floor of this house. Especially something like this, a fairly suburban area, house close to the street. It could very well be a passerby that called this in, and the person inside has no idea. So take the literally 10 seconds, because what do you guys think conditions are going to be like on the first floor here? Probably you could walk in there with a t-shirt and shorts and be perfectly fine. So take that few seconds to just walk around and see if anyone's in there, okay? We want to control that door. So if we do open it or we have to force it, we don't necessarily want it to just swing in the breeze so that any amount of air can get in. Although in this specific case, the fire looks fairly developed already. So we're going to do that. We're going to go in, and this is a basic layout of a cape. So I'm going to back up away from this fire and just talk about the basic layout of a cape here. Like I said, a cape and a colonial, you usually have the stairs in close proximity to the front door. In a cape, you could have a variety of different, layouts down here, but more than likely the kitchen is going to be either to the back left or back right. And you are generally going to have a room down here that could be a bedroom. In this case, it's labeled a bedroom. When I lived in a cape, it wasn't a bedroom, but especially the older population, they don't want to go upstairs. So they're going to use a bedroom on the first floor. So do not discount that 3 a.m., run. A bedroom could be on that first floor. These rooms, again, interchangeable, dining room, living room. Be cognizant of this. So if we had a fire in the dining room here, see how this door kind of swings open that way? What can actually happen is this door, as it swings open, can block this access to the dining room. So there may be a wall here on many capes, but it may also be open and only blocked by that door. So in a first floor fire where you may have low or zero visibility on here, as that door opens, that's why we always teach in basic search, you got to search behind the door. Not just are you searching behind for victims that may have gone down, but you also want to search behind that door to see if there is actually access into this room here. Because think about taking 1 3/4 inch coming all the way around here versus just straight into the left. big difference in terms of, again, 60 degrees, sunny, not a big difference. 3 a.m., low light, low visibility, high heat, big difference in doing that. So, your fire could actually wrap around you as you do that. So make sure we're searching behind doors for access and victims. This brings up my other point to why we are stretching the line into that front door a lot of the time. Regardless of which door, exterior door, so in this cape, there's another door here, but regardless of the layout of the cape, if someone's trapped on that second floor, in order to get to the first floor, they got to come down those stairs. And so in the case of the fire on the second floor, if they are overcome just as they come out and they come down the stairs and collapse at the bottom, we're going to find them right there as we open that door. If the fire's in the first floor and they're coming down the stairs and they're overcome, again, we're going to find them a lot of times right in that area where they were trying to get out. So that's why it's a very good practice a lot of the time, not all the time, and we will get into times tonight it's not, but it's fairly good practice for first and second floor fires to stretch that line into the main front door where the stairs are and where the main points of egress are. The other thing that you'll notice here, the bathroom. So chances are if they did add on to this and put a second bathroom in, it's going to be directly above this bathroom. It makes the plumbing and all of those easier to work with. And again, just this house in particular, although it's a cape through and through, the windows can definitely throw you off. So that's why it's so important that we do that 360 and see that on there. So if we go back to this, and what I'm going to show you is just, so I have an overlay of the second floor. So this is basically how the second floor lines up with the first. And so again, the stairs are right dead set in the middle. You come up here, and when you get up to the top of the stairs, you have this kind of mini area here. And again, this isn't the house that we're looking at because it's got this dormer in the back just for the bathroom. But most capes will have a bedroom to the left and a bedroom to the right. And this brings up my point again of why we want to bring that line into the front door. There are, departments out there that would take that first line and put it into this window from the exterior here. And that will absolutely 100% put the fire out, no questions asked. What that won't do, however, is take care of any victims that may be down in this area. So if this is the B side here, and this is the D side here, A side here, and C side here. If this is your bedroom on fire, and this door is left open, someone in this bedroom hears the smoke alarm, comes out here, and is overcome by smoke and collapses into this main hallway right here, then while we're stretching that line into the B side here, no one's coming up these stairs and finding this victim here, okay? And so that's something that as an incident commander or even a first due officer, which just because you're in Fire 1 does not mean you can't be a first due officer tomorrow. That's something that you guys may have to consider why we bring that line into the front door. And then, the other main purpose of that first line is to protect us. So if I have a report of people trapped on the second floor and this is my room of fire, I'm going to bring that line up here and protect this bedroom so that other members can then search that bedroom. I don't know about you. I'm not going to feel very confident coming up these stairs and searching this bedroom if there's no hose line up there protecting me. And I don't think that there's a lot of incident commanders out there, even with the best firemen in the world, that are going to feel comfortable sending guys up here to do that without a hose line there. Okay. So that's another reason why we stretch that hose line most of the time in through that front door. Now, by all means, if you have the entire second floor fully involved and you want to put some water onto it from the outside, you're well within your rights. But in this case, again, we have smoke from this bedroom, but it's not, this. So I certainly consider that bedroom to be survivable space there. And if we had a mini dormer on the back, that would represent this bathroom. So I started with this scenario. I didn't want to put in any curveballs or anything, but this is one where if no one meets you, I'm going to assume there's a possibility that someone's in there. That falls in my middle. I've got my left, which is the mother comes out and says, everyone's out of the house. There's 4 of us. My husband's at work. Here's my kid, and my other kid's in college. All right, well, that's going to take me down, and that may change my tactics. Then we have this middle here where no one meets me, and I don't really know, so I'm going to assume that there are victims there. I'm going to be as aggressive and as aggressively safe as possible, or as safely aggressive as possible. And then we have the other end where the mother comes out and says, my kid is sleeping on that second floor. And that's going to take me to that. Maybe I'll push the limits a little bit more. All right. So those are kind of the 3 categories I run into. All 3 of those require a primary search. We shouldn't ever say, oh, well, she said no one's there, so we're not going to do a primary search. But certainly in the level of importance, with staffing being a realistic hindrance for some departments, that primary search may get pushed down a little bit, and we may stretch that second line as a backup before we put guys in for a primary search. That's going to be dependent on, again, staffing and fire conditions and whatnot. But that's kind of the CAPE, a basic second floor fire and a CAPE. I don't want to call it simple because there's no, simple, but I guess I will call it straightforward in this scenario where you have one room going on a second floor. Again, you're going to have good visibility on that first floor, and you can get right up to that second floor. So does anyone have any questions on this one? Does anyone want to hit anything? Like I said, I got a few guys on here that I know have a vast amount of knowledge. So if I missed anything that you guys want to throw in there, please do. If not, I am going to go to the next one. All right, so here's number 2. So what kind of a building do we have here? Anyone want to throw it out? So we have a raised ranch here. So going back to basically, and you can kind of see in the raised, well, in a ranch in general, I would say that the front door is usually not dead center in the structure where it is in a CAPE. But again, going back to the ranch and raised ranch style, you've got the large bay window on the right side here and multiple bedroom windows or bedroom windows, I'll call them, to the left of the front door. And they can be positioned on either side. So you could have the house set up where the bay windows on the left and the bedroom windows are on the right. So the basic scenario, let me pull up a couple pictures I have. But the basic premise of a ranch is that as you go in that front door, you have one side of like your dining room area, living room area, kitchen room area, and then you go into the other end and you have your living areas. So let me. So this is a presentation I'm working on. It's not completely done yet, but we'll go through it. We'll go through a couple points of it anyway. So this is a basic ranch, kind of style where you have this front door here. You go in, you have a living room on the right, the kitchen in the rear, and that would be indicated from the exterior by a larger bay window here. You see this is a 25-inch window. It might be, I think it's 2 25-inch windows. So creating that kind of bay window area there. Then you have your bedrooms, and these are those smaller windows, 10.5-inch wide windows to the left. So any number of bedrooms, master bedrooms, bathrooms, whatever the case may be, a utility room. This could be, this layout is not specific to this ranch. It could be any, but you have that segregation between the living area and I don't know what you call it, living area and bedroom area. So that's going to be a ranch. Now, in the same token, the raised ranch is going to be basically the same thing, but you're going to have that upper level. As soon as you come in that front door, that door is going to be in between the top level and lower level. I don't know if I had a picture of that So right here, you see how the door is not level with the top floor and it's not level with the lower floor. It's in the middle of that. And that should tell you as soon as you open up that door, you're going to have half a stairway up and half a stairway down indicated like this. Okay. So that like half of a stairway up is going to go up to your, basically your ranch. And then the half of a stairway down, there, half of a stairway down is going to go to the lower level, which could consist of pretty much anything. So, all right. So in this case, you have the half stairway up, which is going to go to this living area, and then the half stairway down, which is going to go to your lower level. Okay. So one debate, and I'll throw it out there and see if you guys, have an input, is what do you call a raised ranch in terms of floor level? So some might call the lower level the first floor and the upper level the second floor. Others may call it the basement and the first floor. I think from a size up standpoint, simply saying that you have a raised ranch probably puts in most people's minds exactly what you're talking about. But then once you're on scene, I think it's important, again, that everyone's on the same page, because if half the guys are thinking the first floor is this bottom part and the other half are thinking that the first floor is the top part, that could lead to some massive confusion. So does anyone, put it this way, I think most would call it the basement and first floor. So is there anyone here that would call it the first floor and second floor? Okay, so for tonight, we'll stick with basement and first floor as well, which again is what I would call it and what I've experienced most calling it. So we'll stick with that. So anyone want to give me like a first in report of what they see here? And maybe the first, you see all four sides here. You show up with four guys, no reports of anything, just like last time. Anyone want to give me a first in and maybe what you're turning around and telling your crew to do while you're doing your 360?
I would come in and say it was a fire on the first floor, raised ranch structure. Possible started in the basement area where carport could be possible car fire as well.
Okay. So I would say I have a fire on the first floor, B side, raised ranch fire on the first floor, B side. I'd turn around to my crew and I would tell them to stretch an inch to 3/4 to the front door. I would probably not say the second part of what you did unless I saw smoke coming from the garage. But if I didn't have any actual indication, I'm probably going to lean towards not assuming something that I don't see. Now, by all means, if you have smoke coming from these, garage doors, then I would absolutely say exactly what you said, possibly starting in the garage below. But I'm only going to say what I see.
Well, hopefully on the 360,
Yep.
the officer or the officer, first in officer, would hopefully look inside if possible, like with
Absolutely.
the windows and make sure. Yeah.
Absolutely, without a doubt. You got these windows here. You got that window there. So absolutely. And again, that goes back to, I want to know what the lowest floor of fire I have.
Right.
Because if I have fire down there, that may or may not, but it may dictate a change in tactics for me. So I absolutely want to know if I have a fire in the garage there. Since I know a lot of guys are in the Fire 1 class here, one of the, I will say, advantages we have with garages is that they are semi-fire protected versus the rest of the house. And so we should have at least some level of fire protection in there, even if it's, double 5/8 sheetrock or something like that. That'll keep the fire at bay for at least a little bit from coming up into maybe the second floor or into the rest of the house, as long as it hasn't been drilled through to run wires or the door isn't left open or things like that. We are going to get into car fires and garages in a little bit, so we'll talk more about that. So as I do my 360, what does someone notice in these two pictures that may give you an indication of where fire has spread to?
Yeah, fire out the louver vent on the opposite end, so you might have some lateral transfer in the attic.
Okay. I agree with half of what you said. What do you have in this louver vent?
You have light smoke showing there. It's just showing that there's some development.
Yeah.
That could possibly be to the ceiling.
You could even say heavy smoke. What I want you guys to get out of the habit of is the second grade lesson of where there's smoke, there's fire. Because after doing this for a few years, I see a lot more smoke than fire. Smoke travels everywhere. And how often do we go to smoke alarms that are absolute complete bullshit that have nothing to do with fire? So in your reports, make sure that you're cognizant of reporting what you see and not what you think you might have, okay, if that makes sense. So don't say, I have fire showing from the attic. Say, I have smoke coming from the attic. Is that still something that we need to investigate? Absolutely. But as an incident commander coming in, if you tell me in one report, I got fire from the B side, and then in a radio update, you say I have fire coming out of the attic on the D side, I've lost this house. I could do whatever I want. This house, we've lost it. Okay. Even if we put the fire out, this roof's coming off and, they may be knocking this house down. So my mindset's going to completely change versus if you say, I have smoke coming out of the attic. Well, I need to get guys up to the attic right away to figure out what I have going on up there. So just and this gets even more when we talk about fire extension in the walls and things like that. But just be wary. If you have smoke, say smoke. If you got fire, say you got fire. Don't confuse the two, okay? But that's an absolute perfect thing that you have to see on that 360. If you don't see that, this house when you could have saved it. So absolutely. So you've done your 360. The initial order was engine 3/4 to the front door. Is anybody changing their tactics here? Again, you can either say it out loud or put it into the chat. Is anyone changing their tactics from an engine 3/4 to the front door at this point? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, again, do not discount taking a peek inside. So what I want to do is open up this front door and see what I have inside. I have a picture that I want to show you of the front door inside here. I apologize, I didn't get it ready before. But what do you guys think, other than what we talked about before of doing our 360, what do we want to do? What are we looking for when we open up that front door and look in? So this is the front door of this house, okay? So if I look in and this is what I see, what is that telling me about the fire that we have going on?
It's not close to there.
It's what?
Not that close to that area.
Okay. That I could tell you just by looking from the outside, but you're absolutely right. It's not. But what is that telling me about the fire travel that I have on that first floor?
It's on the upper level.
Well, again, yeah, I can see that it's on the upper level just from doing my 360 walk around. But by opening this door, what is that telling me about the fire room?
Oh, that it's contained in that room.
Yeah, bingo. That's huge. That doesn't change, but it makes a big difference to our overall life safety size up. So by looking here, and again, you're going to get a pretty good view because just like a flashover box where you're kind of, a little bit lower than the fire, even if we did have fire here, you're a little bit lower, so you're going to get a pretty good view of what's going on. But if it's clear as a bell like this, it's telling me that there's a door to this room that's shut. And that's a huge difference for the kind of conditions I'm going to face on that first floor and the survivability of anybody on that first floor. I could probably do a primary search on that entire first floor, not being on air, without, even taking a feed of smoke if it's that clear. And it tells me that door is closed. So it's buying me time to get that first line into place. Vice versa, if I open up that front door and smoke hits me at that door, I know that, if anyone's on that first floor, they're going to need to be rescued quick. And when I stretch that line, I'm going to need to stretch it in zero visibility up to that point, up to that bedroom. And I may have to actually, fight fire in that hallway itself. Okay. So that's an excellent thing to do as an officer. even if your crew is not done stretching their 1 3/4 yet, get access to that front door and take a quick peek inside. If I took a quick peek like that and I saw that and it was clear as a bell, I'm going to do a quick primary search on that first floor because I don't consider that an IDLH, okay? But by all means, if I open up that front door and smoke hits me at that door, then I'm waiting, I'm controlling the door and waiting for my crew, okay? Does that make sense? All right. So with that, this should be a fairly, again, I don't want to call it easy, but a straightforward fire where we go in that front door, up those stairs to the left, down a hallway, and put some water onto this fire, okay? For a search, we can either, if we have a second crew coming, then they can search off of our line, or if we have, 5 guys on our line, then maybe one guy breaks off. That's going to come down to your department, your SOPs, and your communication. But we still want to get a primary search of that first floor done. Now let's talk about that smoke that we have in the attic area. So what's the best way to find out if we have fire up in that attic? We very simply put one of us up there, okay? So let me pull up my presentation. So if we want to talk about access to the attic, most of the time it's going to be like this, a set of fold down stairs. So we're going to fold these stairs down and then be able to stick our heads up there, a camera up there, whatever the case may be, in order to see what we have going on in that attic, okay? Where are these stairs usually placed though?
In the hallway.
Yeah. So this is the two, what we may see up there. If we get up in the attic, we got to be careful with no floor. But going back to what you talked about, it's usually in the hallway. So it may be right dead here. So again, this isn't the house we're looking at, but if we came in here, stretched down, and hit this bedroom fire, the stairs are probably going to be right here. So what's that going to do to our access into the bedroom? Go ahead, Ed. What were you going to say?
Well, if you pull the stairs down, you no longer have access to that room.
Yeah. So, but we already have guys in there, and so
Right.
it creates a fairly, I don't want to say major, but something to be aware of, hazard to our crews that are operating beyond those stairs should the ceiling blow down on them or anything happen where they need to quickly get out if there aren't ladders thrown. So a couple ways around that. Obviously, we want to communicate with them. So before I take those stairs down, I'm going to go there and let them know, hey, I need to gain access to the attic. I'm going to take the stairs down. What's going to be another way to gain access to the attic? Well, we could simply duck into one of these bedrooms and put a couple of holes into the ceiling with our hooks, okay? Now, if we do that, it's going to depend what kind of attic we run into. Obviously, if we run into one with full flooring like that, we're going to have a little issue getting up through there. I think a lot of attics are going to be more like this, where, we're going to get right up there through the insulation and be able to get a fairly good idea of what's going on up in the attic. But that just comes down to communication. And again, knowing your kind of structural, very basic building construction. But we do have to get up into that attic to see what's going on, okay? Otherwise, it will run probably uninhibited along this wall. Now, this house, it's got an addition, so there may be a little bit of a firewall there. But obviously, if smoke's starting to work through it, fire could break through it at some point as well. So that's something that we want to, be cognizant of. So that's pretty much the raised ranch. Again, for the first floor fire, get the line in the front door, get the fire knocked down, do our searches, and check above us and check below us. Nothing crazy out of the ballpark there. Does anyone have any questions before we go to our next one? All right. Let's see. All right. So we will do probably one of the more common fires that you go to, a attached garage fire. So obviously let's play.
what's going to be going on in an attached garage? A lot of times, what is going to be burning? And someone said it before, but I think it's worth mentioning again.
Car.
A car, vehicle of some sort. And
lawnmower.
yeah, anything like that. And it could be anything. But again, what the car fires that you guys have been to, what kind of smoke do they put out? Really wretched, black, and it's hot. So these can be very punishing fires, especially if it starts to spread to the house. So someone give me a size up. You're first in for this one. Someone want to hit a first in for this one?
We got fire showing on the AD side.
Okay, do you want to say what kind of building you have or something?
Oh, it looks like a ranch from here.
Okay, so that's fine. And if you don't know, you can say a one-story wood frame. So, dispatch, I got a one-story ranch or a one-story wood frame, fire showing from the AD corner. If you know that that's a garage and you want to say so, I think that's a fairly good thing to add. It kind of, gets everyone in the mindset of what they have. But if you're not sure if it's a garage because there's a lot of fire coming from it, then by all means, don't say that yet. It's all about, I think the most important thing with a first in is getting the correct information out without giving wrong information. I think there's nothing you can do worse than giving wrong information because it gets everyone into a wrong mindset of what they're going into. All right, so I think we all agree we got fire on the AD corner of the first floor of a ranch. So in a attached garage, again, what I talked about before, how the garage is at least, it's not fireproofed by any stretch, but at least somewhat more fire protected than the rest of the house. We still want to do our 360, so we'll do that. Okay. What do you guys, does anyone want to throw out what they think probably the most important thing from a fire travel standpoint in an attached garage fire might be?
Get up into the roof.
What's up?
Gonna get up into the roof in this case?
I could, but think about life safety and living areas. What's going to
Stop
yeah, Dave, go ahead.
You want to stop it from going into the living space. So
Yeah.
I would probably do, if you've got the crew, maybe a 2.5 in the garage, but an 1 3/4 in the front door at the same time.
Absolutely. So the number one thing, and we'll get into it later with basements, but the number one thing with an attached garage fire is to find out what's going on where the garage changes to the house. So there's a few options. Is there no entry? Maybe there's just a wall there. Is there a door, and is it holding or is it closed? So that's what we want to really look at. So in this, I have, this is the actual floor plan of this house. And this is kind of showing you what would happen if a garage door was closed. So in a garage door closed, you've got heavy fire in the garage, but the majority of the fire is going to be stopped at least for a certain time period by that door. And then you are going to get a little bit of smoke throughout the building. In a garage door open scenario, this is what Long Hill had the other night in Trumbull, heavy fire in the garage, and the door was left open, so it began to spread into the living area of that house. Not only is this going to be the worst for fire spread, but this is also, again, going to be the most hazardous for anyone in that house. Now, the smoke condition in these bedrooms are going to be directly reflective of if their individual doors are open or closed, okay? So if these doors are open, then the smoke condition in these bedrooms is going to match what it is in this hallway, and it's probably going to be fairly close to what it is, right in this dining room taking the brunt of this garage. If these doors are closed, then the smoke condition is probably going to be fairly light. To go off on a quick tangent, there's a new UL study out there that's fairly, in-depth in basically a ranch house like this. It lit a fire in this room here and this room here and had the third bedroom door closed. And throughout the half hour or so that they let it burn, the smoke condition in this bedroom never got toxic enough to kill the person that was on the bed. And yet when the door was left open, it killed them in about 6 minutes or so. So the importance of closing these doors, both for victims and for firemen once we start doing searches, cannot be overemphasized. And that's nothing new. We just have studies now that are backing that up. So again, I don't want to be the broken record. I'm doing that 360, and then as an officer, I'm sticking my head into that front door. And because, yeah, I have a lot of smoke up here, and that could mean it's got in the attic, or it could just be a lot of smoke coming off of this. But I want to know what's going on in my living space here, okay? If I open up this door and it's clear as a bell, again, I might go in there and do a very quick primary search. If I open up this door and it's, you know, this smoke all the way to the ground, well, I'm closing the door, waiting for my crew. And again, that's shifted how hard I need to push in here. You know, if I have reports of victims trapped, things like that. This is a very common fire. You know, if I rolled up with 3 guys, what I would probably do is 1 3/4 inch and hit this for a few seconds and then go in the front door if I thought that that door was closed. Or I should say if I thought it was open. If it was closed and I could get a quick primary done, then I'm just going to this fire and knocking it down. So again, if you're able to get that primary done, if you have reports of people trapped, I mean, if I've, you know, this is a kind of unique one where I can almost do one line to do both, meaning it doesn't really take much for me to hit this quick here to darken it down and then move it to the front door. If you go back to some of the other ones, in order to hit it from the exterior quick and then get to your front door, you got to stretch it all the way around the building. So that's a fair bit of difference. So in this one, yeah, I'm probably knocking this quick from the outside. If I have a report of people trapped, I may go in quick to the left and try to figure out, you know, if I can get a quick search done. A lot of that's going to be based on the experience level of your crew as well. You know, if you have 3 relatively new guys, I do not expect or want someone to go in there by themselves, even for a known life hazard. And remember, let's just break down, we are allowed to enter an IDLH by ourselves for a known life hazard. So I'm not talking about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, car in the garage, I'm going in by myself to do a search. I'm talking about 3 in the afternoon, the mother comes and finds me and says, my kid's still in the house. Well, maybe I do go in by myself to do a search while my crew's stretching a line. Big difference between standard search and rescue and known life hazard. Don't confuse the two, okay? So yeah, and again, you know, this one's fairly straightforward with the fire, but I would want to make sure that it's not burning in the basement and spread up to there, okay? That's going to be something important as well. And if you look, the stairs are kind of in an odd location on this one. In a ranch, we'd usually find them in this hall heading towards the basement. In this case, you know, they're over that area. So even if we wanted to get to the basement from the interior, we're kind of blocked off there. But although this is just a depiction, for those of you that have been to fires where both the door was open and closed, it's a huge difference. So do not discount that fact of trying to find out if that door is open or closed, and allowing that can allow you to dictate your tactics a little bit.
Question.
Yeah.
The stairs leading from the dining room down into the basement, but that's not leading into the garage area. Is that correct?
It's like a split level. So half a flight goes to the garage and then another half a flight goes down into the basement area. So it is a little bit of an oddball, but that's only going to make conditions worse on this first floor because it's going to make those stairs a little bit like a chimney, and that fire and smoke's going to come right up into this first floor. So,
all right.
You know, what I would say, we had a couple questions last time about, you know, if I'm a new officer and I'm not really sure what to do. Again, just go down, you know, what's our priorities? Life safety, property conservation, incident stabilization, those kind of go hand in hand. But, you know, life safety, if they don't have any known life hazard, you can't go wrong with getting water onto that fire, okay? It's always going to make things better from the firefighter perspective, getting water onto that fire. Whether it makes it better for victims or not, we still have to get them out of that building, but it will buy us time to be able to get in there and search for them. Okay. So any more questions on this one? All right. If anyone has a, specific one they want to see, throw it out there. We got a little bit of everything for everyone. All right, this is a good one. We'll do a little basement action here. All right, someone want to give me a first in for this one? Yeah, nothing fancy. Just tell me what you see. All right, engine one on scene. I have a one-story ranch. I have what appears to be smoke and fire showing from the rear. Anyone disagree with me, or are we good with that? All right, so we're going to do our 360. If I can hit this. All right, as soon as I do that, I'm getting back on the air. Engine one to dispatch, be advised I have heavy fire in the basement, auto exposing up the B side to the first floor and attic. That's going to be exactly what I'm saying, all right? So what I've told you then, first what I told you was I have fire showing from the rear, okay? I can't see where it's coming from the rear, but I got fire in the rear. I can see that kind of ember. And again, yes, I'm cheating. I built these, so I know exactly what they are. But nevertheless, I come around here. It's fairly obvious we have fire coming from the basement. And I'm going to say that it's starting to auto expose up to the first floor and into the attic. I've got smoke on the first floor. I've got smoke from the eaves. So let's back up and kind of put into English what we just said. So we have fire in the basement. Auto exposing is going to be the term used for fire extending from one floor to the other via the exterior of the building. So if this fire was extending up in the stairs, we would just call that extending up from the basement. If it was extending up in the walls, for slang, you can call it running the walls, but I have fire extending in the walls. When we have fire extending on the exterior, that's going to be considered auto exposing. If we had a building that was 5 feet away, a bad example, if we had a building that was 5 feet away here, we could call that auto exposing from one building to the other. In this case, it's simply auto exposing up the side of the building. And that's a major concern. It's going to get into this first floor as soon as that window fails. And then it's going to get into the attic either through this vent here or through the soffits along the attic there. Okay. So that's why we have to be concerned with how that's extending. I'm going to throw up this presentation quick. I just want to show. It's actually going to be a cape. But what I want to show is a little bit about the soffits. So the soffits are basically this area here where the roof line comes over the outer edge, and there's usually vents in there. I know this is not the best drawing, but there's usually vents in there. So there's nothing stopping the fire from coming up into the attic. And so that's why we have to be very careful about exterior fire like that. Don't assume that the exterior fire is just going to burn the exterior. And we have vinyl siding, so we have to be, this is basically fuel on the exterior of the building. So any of that stuff we got to be concerned about. So the other thing that I didn't say on my radio report that I might want to have added was that it's a walkout basement, because that may change where your first line is going for some. So, all right, so this is the scenario that we have. We'll go with, again, a crew of 3 or 4. And I say 3 or 4 because if you go with 1 or 2, you don't have a ton of options of where you can stretch that first line. I really would not, want to stretch an 1 3/4 with essentially one guy if you have a crew of 2 into a building. So if you have 3 or 4, at least you have a little bit of a, ability to kind of change where your line's going. So in a basement fire, just like we had a couple of things for a garage fire, the garage fire, we want to know what's going on with that door between the garage and the house. With a basement fire, I want to know what my secondary access to the basement is. We know that we almost are always going to have some sort of interior stairway to the basement. and then we're almost always going to have some sort of exterior access to the basement. That exterior access could be any form of so our exterior access could be exterior basement stairs like this that go down to a door. More likely it's going to be the Bilko door, which I don't have a picture for in here yet, but we showed you the Bilko door on the last one. So it could either be that Bilko door or something like this where it's a walkout basement and it's almost, it's a full door at grade level because this yard slopes down from the front to the back, but it could just as easily slope the other way, and your secondary access to the basement could be in the front of the house as well. So that's the big thing I need to know with a basement is what's my secondary access to the basement, because a lot of times that will dictate how you're going to stretch that first line. So what are my options? Let's just say pie in the sky. What are my options with that first line here? Well, number one, I could bring my first line into that front door. I could find the stairs, descend the stairs, and knock this fire down. Number two, I could stretch my line around the rear, knock this fire down, and go in from the interior. And number three, which is probably my choice in this case, is stretch my line around to the rear, operate it along the B side to kind of knock down the majority of this auto exposure here, and then go into that rear door here and do a standard interior attack in the basement there. That's probably what I'm leaning towards, because even if I go in here and do a great job knocking this fire down, that's not stopping the auto exposure on the outside here. If I stretch a line into the front door, first I have to find the stairs, and if this fire's already gotten into the first floor, conditions on the first floor are not going to be very favorable. I have to find the stairs, which may not be easy. Then I have to stretch the line down the stairs, which is really not going to be easy. And then I have to find the fire in the basement. So there's a lot of steps that have to come into play in order to do that. So I'm not apt to do that with my first line here. So my first line with that crew of three, and again, that could be a crew of two, just as easily come around the rear and knock at least this auto exposure down so I can hopefully prevent fire from getting into the first floor in the attic. If I'm not able to do that and fire legitimately enters this first floor in the attic, it's going to be very hard to knock this fire down without losing the house. Okay. So what's counting against us is, where is this fire burning? Is it burning on the living room kitchen side, or is it burning on the bedroom side of our ranch house? I mean, it's burning on that bedroom side, right?
Yeah.
So from a life safety standpoint, I am a step behind in terms of getting searches done, meaning, the conditions to conduct these searches are probably not going to be all that much fun. It's probably going to be fairly hot, smoky. You may even have some fire on that first floor again. So it's going to be a fairly punishing search that we need to conduct. What are my options? So that's the first line. There's really, this is one where even if I had someone meeting me out here saying my kid's trapped on the first floor, I would have a hard time not getting some water onto this fire. Maybe if I had a crew of three and I had a really good chauffeur, he could stretch and operate 1 3/4 inches by himself here while two of us go in and do a search. But that's like known life hazard, and I have the crew of aces. If I have a crew that maybe doesn't have as much experience, I got to get some water onto this fire before we do a search, okay? But that's definitely something that I need to radio in so that the second due company gets a search done as soon as they get here, gets off the rig and beelines right into that first floor for a search. What are some options for that second hand line? Have you guys done for the Fire 1 class? If you guys have done, basic fire control and stuff, what's generally the main purpose of that second hand line? Anyone want to throw a guess out there of what the purpose of the second line is? You can type it in the box if you want.
Protect the stairs?
Protect the stairs and protect the first line usually. A lot of times if it's a basement, in a basement fire, the second line may protect the stairs. In a standard like second floor or first floor fire, that second line can protect the stairs, but it's also a backup if the first line has any issues. But in this case, I'm not going to want to take the second line to the rear and back up this first line because I'm neglecting the entire living area of this house at that point. So in that case, Dave, exactly what you said, my second line is going to go into this front door, protect the stairs, and again, more importantly, protect us, protect that second crew that I sent in here to do an unprotected search on this first floor. So I gotta have them some protection so that if this window fails, they have a line up there that can, help them out. If the doorway from the basement to the first floor is left open, then that second line absolutely has to protect those stairs as well. But we also have the ability to simply shut that door also. So that's all things that are going to go into that, size.
Well, I was going to say, if you took it in the front door on the A side and like he said, protect the stairwell, but also you would already have it stretched in the house in case your search team came across fire extension in another room, and then you would already have it in place.
Without a doubt, I would not want to commit that line, to somewhere I didn't need it. I'm sure you guys have gone through stretching charged hose lines. It's very easy to sit here on a computer and say, oh, I would stretch it here, but then if I didn't need it there, I would move it over here. Well, it's easy to say I would move it over here. It's not easy to move a charged hose line in zero visibility. So absolutely, we want to put it in the front door and protect those stairs, but we don't want to necessarily commit it to somewhere until we know that it's needed there. So someone mentioned here, never put your second line in the same hole your first line goes, which I assume you mean the same door. In a basement fire, I agree with that. I probably do not agree with that in like a first floor or second floor fire. If it's a first floor fire, it's probably going to go in the same door, but then up the stairs instead of staying on the first floor. So we're still going to go into the same entrance that the first line did. Check that the first line is doing okay on the first floor, and then extend it up to the second floor. That would be my feeling on that. But again, and he's mentioning that your homes typically have a back or a side door. Again, it's all about communication, and I'm not here to dictate tactics in your area. But even if this has a rear door, if I have a fire on the first floor, a ranch might be a little bit different. But if this was a regular second floor fire, two-story building with a first floor fire, probably my first two lines are going in the front door, and then that second line is going up to the second floor to check for extension. But by all means, if your first line is bogged down in the front door and you want to use a secondary entrance, that's what the back or side doors are excellent for. And with a basement fire, I certainly agree. It's generally not going to be a good practice to put both first two lines into the same, direction. Now my third line may have to go into this front door again to gain access to the attic if we get any extension up there. This is another one. Once that life safety goes out the window, meaning we conducted a primary search, then, fire extension is going to be the next big thing we have to examine here. And it's probably going to be via the attic. If we don't get this fire knocked down, getting up into those soffits and starting to run the attic is going to be a big issue here. But this is one of those where, even if I have a report of people trapped, you got to get some water on this fire, or this search area is not even going to be tenable. So anyone else want to touch on this one at all? Anything else they want to add? All right, so we will keep going then. We'll do an Avalon style one, Dave. All right, so here's your condo complex. What in building construction, guys, are we very concerned about, particularly when it comes to like condo complexes and whatnot?
How high the firewall goes in the attic.
Even more, that's from a fire standpoint. You're absolutely right. But how about from our life safety standpoint? What's going to be a big issue?
How many's occupied, or if there's anyone there?
Yeah, from a civilian life safety standpoint, I'm talking about firefighter safety standpoint. What is our major concern with condo complexes as a whole?
Building construction.
Where's it coming from?
Yeah. Guys, trust. You're getting more complicated than you need to. New construction, lightweight truss construction. That has got to be the forefront of your mind if you go to something brand new looking like this, okay? That's how it's going to kill us. Victims are going to be dead well before this collapses on them. But from our standpoint, this is going to collapse on us, okay? So everything you guys said about fire travel is 100% correct. Firewalls, common attics, all that stuff, that's 100% correct. But if it's burning in the attic, what is it impinging on? It's impinging on all those lightweight gusset plates, lightweight truss, 2x4s, 2x whatevers, gusset plates that are barely put into wood. That's what we have to be concerned about from a firefighter safety perspective. So I present to you with this, a 3-story condo, heavy fire in the attic. This is in Danbury. It was built in the mid 2000s. It is lightweight construction. So what are you guys thinking from a life safety standpoint of civilians? Are we going to go in and do a search on this?
If it's known to be, if you got somebody coming out saying somebody's in there, yes.
Okay, if no one meets you out here, this is what you're presented with. Are you going to go in and do a search?
I'm searching. There's a car in the driveway.
I'm sorry?
I'm putting a search team in place. There's a car in the driveway.
Absolutely. 100%. I'm going to get searches done on all 3 floors as quick as possible. And again, with very little and no smoke showing from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors, it's probably not going to be all that horrible of a search to conduct. From this size up, it looks like the majority of the fire and smoke is in that maybe top floor, but mostly attic. And so, I don't want to get too far into this, but this is a search it and burn it to the ground. That's basically what's going to happen here. Search it quick, get your master streams in place and put some water into it. I'm not stretching 1 3/4 in. If I show up with 4 guys on this, I'm taking my crew in and we're doing a search, but I'm leaving the hose lines behind at this point, and I'm telling my chauffeur to just prepare for, an exterior attack, because this is a heavy fire condition in an area that's probably got limited accessibility in an area that's burning directly onto lightweight construction. This is prime for a collapse right here. But we still have to go in and make sure that there are no civilians in there. Now, that's completely different from if this had the fire that, Trumbull had years ago, a balcony with a fire burning there that was starting to extend into the attic. That's a completely different scenario. This is a heavily involved advanced fire condition in the attic space. This isn't an incipient fire on a 3rd floor that's starting to auto extend into the attic. This is well involved directly on, lightweight construction. So a little bit different, in my opinion, scenario here. So that's mine. That's my theory here, is get a search done quick on both units and then pull out and let's get some aerial master streams in place and see what damage we can do on here. And when I say burn to the ground, I don't mean literally burn to the ground, but the roof's probably coming off of this and we're not going home anytime soon. So anyone want to comment? Oh, yeah, Will, go ahead. Sorry.
If I may, in
Yeah.
the condo situation like you have there, there's also going to be accessibility issues because all the condos are generally vertical from bottom to top without a common corridor. So it's going to take extra time to do those searches because it's generally speaking compartmentalized as far as your access between the condos.
Well, you're going to have to force entry into this door and do a search, and then force entry into this door and do a search. But this is one unit, all 3 floors. So it's like a single, these are 2 units. So you're really it's like 2 houses connected to each other. It's not what you're thinking of where each floor is a separate unit or something like that. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Will Wiley, you had your hand raised. So do you want to comment?
Sure. I mean, it's really pretty interesting. You're right. It looks so much odd with the double door on one side and the 2 single doors, but there's 2 distinct entrances into this building, and they probably share a common wall up outside of that single window there, running straight up from where the bay window is straight up. So it's really going to be kind of a hard say. Even if you get to the top floor, second floor, whatever it is, it'll be rough figuring out where in the ceiling is it coming, where to start, where's the place of origin.
Yeah, I mean, if this was an ordinary construction, meaning like a standard 3-story, and we called this an attic, then by all means, stretch an 1 3/4, a couple 1 3/4 to the top floor, send a lot of guys up there with hooks, have them start pulling, put a crew on the roof, have them start cutting, and try to peel it back. But again, the big difference is significant building construction changes. That's really the only big difference. If you make this all 2x8s and framed construction and braced construction and all very substantial lumber is the word, dimensional lumber is the word I'm looking for, then by all means you could have some luck if you had the manpower on arrival for this. But with this, I don't want guys in this building. By the time we get a line up there and hooks starting to operate, this is probably already going to have localized collapse. So, get the life safety hazard out and put some heavy water into that top floor or attic area and see what you can do. That's kind of what I'm going with this. So this is the same condo, different scenario. This is our kind of basement garage type thing. Again, we want to make sure we're all on the same page. So our main entrance is actually going in on the 2nd floor here. So, my size up would be something along the lines of a 3-story condo complex. Heavy fire from the garage on the 1st floor. And again, you've got to realize that when you go into this floor, if you have to give a report, you're on the 2nd floor, you're not on the 1st floor. And so, or if you guys decide to make this a basement, 1st and 2nd floor, I have no problem with that as long as everybody on scene is on the same page. That's the most important part. Now, if these condos, someone mentioned it before, if these looked identical, then this side looked identical to this side, a very good move would be to go into this condo and get a layout of what you got, kind of where your rooms are, where the stairs are, things like that. Because they're completely different, I'm probably not doing that. This is one, again, we're still running into lightweight construction. These floors could all be lightweight, construction of different sorts. I'm probably leaning towards just getting a lot of water onto this fire, following up with a crew going into this 2nd floor and conducting a search. Definitely. Especially in condos, do not discount these garages being turned into bedrooms. Do not discount to the rear rooms being turned into bedrooms on every floor. And so where you take capes and your bedrooms are usually on the 2nd floor, maybe one on the 1st floor, your ranches, you kind of know where the bedrooms are. I think a lot of that generally goes out the window when you talk about these types of condos where truly a bedroom could be put anywhere. Really any rooms could be put anywhere, and so you really have to be cognizant to search all 3 floors. If you have an experienced crew and you feel comfortable giving them the authority, VES is not a bad idea here for these upper floor back rooms where you may have trouble finding the stairs, where you have a smoke condition that may indicate that fire is starting to spread into the main part of the condo. Then getting a ladder to the rear here and getting crews up there, or even if you get this fire knocked down and getting an aerial ladder up to these front windows, you may have better luck, getting a crew into those windows. The one thing I like about VES, a lot of people like to think of it as kind of an advanced tactic, but you don't have to know where the stairs are. And I think that that's a huge advantage, because if I put a ladder up to this window and I don't move that ladder, you don't have to find the stairs to get yourself out of the building. You just have to worry about that one room that you were put into. And so I actually think in a building that does not have a typical layout, where the stairs could kind of be anywhere and you could get turned around quick, I think in many ways, if you practice it beforehand, VES for that top floor could almost be a safer evolution than sending a crew into a zero visibility environment, having them try to find the stairs, try to get to the second floor, having an idea of where they are, and then proceeding to those rooms. Now, if I have someone meeting me and pointing to this window and saying, my kid is in there, then I'm probably not going to go into that front door and assume that I can find the stairs and pinpoint where that bedroom is. That's a prime, let me grab a 24, throw it to this deck in the rear or the side, and get into that room directly from, that ladder, knowing that I'm hitting the room that this woman just pointed into. But VES could be a whole nother night we could do on this. I just want to touch on that being what I think is a very, good kind of evolution for this. But I don't think your first line's going into that second floor door. I think your first water has to go to put this fire out. We still have a major auto exposure issue. If we don't do that, the fire is going to roll up and up the side here. And then if it gets into those soffits and gets into that attic, very quickly, this is what you'll be presented with heavy fire here. But again, I feel the same way with this. If you can, condos are not usually a winning proposition. Lightweight construction condos are not usually a winning proposition. So if you can get some good primary searches done, I think a lot of incident commanders' blood pressures go down significantly at that point, knowing that, okay, well, if we have to pull the plug and get everyone out of here, at least we've gotten a good search done. So does anyone else have any questions, comments, thoughts on condos at all? All right, let's see. We'll do probably one or two more. This is a good one. All right. So what kind of building, what kind of private dwelling structure are we looking at here? Anyone want to throw that out there, either via chat or out loud? What kind of layout, what's the name of this type of private dwelling that we're looking at?
Attached.
2-story single family.
Okay. It is absolutely a 2-story single family. This would be the garage. You could call this a colonial as well. It's kind of a mix of a center hall colonial and not, but a true center hall colonial, this door would be swapped with this window and it would be right under there. But it is a colonial in the sense that it's a rectangle and then it just kind of has a garage built off of the B side here. So my size up would probably be something along the lines of, I have a 2-story colonial, smoke from the front door, and appears to be heavy smoke from the rear as well. In this scenario, because the garage has nothing to do with the fire situation, it's probably not going to come up in my size up. Whereas we have another one. This one. Whereas this one, the garage is on fire. And so in this case, same exact building, I'm probably saying something along the lines of a 2-story colonial attached garage on the B side, heavy fire from the garage. So that's one where you can't say everything in your first in. And so you kind of have to pick and choose, because I don't want to sit here for 30 seconds on the radio. But by all means, if the garage is involved, I think that that's an important thing to mention. So in this case, we've got heavy smoke from the front door. What I'm trying to indicate here is that the front door is left opened and we have heavy smoke from the rear. So with a car in the garage, and a front door left open, if no one's greeting me there and telling me what's going on, that ramps me up until I've got someone trapped inside there. Okay. So this is my B side. Again, ramped up a little bit more because the garage door was left opened. The main bay garage door was left open. And now I'm coming onto the C side. I can see heavy fire from the first floor, auto extending possibly to the second floor. So this is where, because I wasn't sure exactly what I have on my size up, my first in, I would probably want to give an additional report now. You know, engine 1 to dispatch, be advised, we have heavy fire on the first floor and the C side, possibly extending to the second floor. So now I'm letting everyone know coming in where the fire is, where the fire is possibly extending to, and I can kind of gauge what my attack is. If you look, we've got some smoke, decent smoke coming out of this window on the top floor. Most likely, again, smoke, not fire. So that's probably just indicating that that bedroom door is opened. That doesn't necessarily mean anything from a fire safety or a victim standpoint. That's just something that we can kind of see on our walk around. Whereas these windows, very little smoke coming from them. So probably those doors are closed. So in a VES scenario, if I was going to VES, just guessing what room to do, that would probably be my first bet because of how much smoke it is. That's probably the worst case scenario. So if I get in there and close that door, that will probably increase the likelihood of survivability. But we're far away from VES. I want to get into our initial concern. So again, even with the possibility of someone in there because no one's met me, you know, this is probably a 2,000, 2,200 square foot house or so. I'm not searching this by myself without a hose line. So I want to get a hose line, and I want to get a hose line into operation as soon as possible. So anyone want to throw out there, where are they stretching their line? Are they coming to the front door with this? Are they going around to the rear? What are some ups and downs for both? Where are you guys going with yours? Anyone want to?
Just judging on the look of the construction of the house.
Where are you going?
Front door.
Front door, okay.
I would say front door as well if you're going to do primary search, if you're going to do the search first.
Okay.
I would check the garage.
What's up?
I would enter the garage. Since it's open, I would assume that there's people in there.
Okay, but remember I said the front door's open also. Does that change, or are you still going to the garage?
Front door.
Front door, okay.
No, front door.
Yeah, I'm going to the front door with this, and it goes back to what we were talking about before. If we take everything else out, if we just wanted to put this fire out and life safety was not a concern, well, probably the quickest way to do that would be to go around the rear and put water into where we see fire. Because there's always the chance you get into the front door here, you get turned around, you can't find the kitchen, you get cut off. There's a lot of shit in there, and you have to come over piles, and you just can't make it back to the kitchen. But our primary concern is life safety. And so if that person was on that second floor and is trying to escape and was overcome by smoke, trying to get out, they're probably going to be right inside of that front door or right at the bottom of that staircase, and we may very well come across them as we're entering. Vice versa, if they were cooking, and this is a cooking accident, and they were burned and they're on the ground, we're going to come across them as we stretch towards that fire. And then most importantly, like we said before, if our engine 2 assignment is to go to the second floor to conduct a search, I want to have that line protecting those stairs. So if I stretch that line into the front door, navigate my way to the rear and put some water on this fire, then that allows my searchers to go wherever they need to in that house without worrying about fire coming up behind them. And then if they get up onto that second floor and they report fire on the second floor, I can either reposition that line to go up to the second floor, or I can have my third due company stretch a second line through that front door up the stairs to the second floor to further protect those searchers. Okay. My issue with coming in through the garage is, well, we have the front door there and it's open, so that part kind of, doesn't really. There's just not a need for it.
It could fail and close on you.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to make sure that we chalk it open. And again, if I would assume that the door is probably somewhere around there in the back there, so we're not protecting the stairs at that point. So if the fire has already worked its way towards the front of the house, and we come in there and we put out this part of the fire, we still potentially have fire that could start working its way up the stairwell into the second floor. So generally the quickest way, unless you really have a need to stretch from something other than the front door for a fire on the first or second floor, it's generally going to be quickest to stretch through that front door. Now, if you need to put water on the fire from the exterior for some reason, that's fine. But if it's going to be an interior attack, you're probably best off stretching through that front door directly towards the fire, because again, life safety comes first. So, anyone else? Where's your second line going? We said to the second floor, probably. Again, this is another one. We got to get up into the attic after we get that search done. We want to get up into the attic and make sure that it's not spreading up there. Same sort of access to the attic. Could be a pull down stairs, could be a staircase though. In this case, with that small attic vent, it's probably a pull down staircase though. All right. Any other questions on that one? All right. So we'll do one more and then we'll call it a night. In the chat, I just put a link to like a class evaluation. So if you guys have to take off early, do me a favor and fill that out for me. And just paste that into your browser and it'll show up. All right, so here's a good one. So here we have again, this is a true center hall colonial where it's fairly symmetrical with that front door in. You've got the large window above there. Give me 1 second. It's bedtime for the kids. You like this? I'll come in a little bit, all right? So we have a true center hall colonial here where the front door is symmetrical with our windows on the first floor. Where you see this kind of window that doesn't match the other ones on the second floor, that's a fairly good giveaway that you have a cathedral, open ceiling in that front area. And so if we did get into a VES scenario, that's a window you want to stay away from. It's probably like a big chandelier hanging down or something like that. But that's an open cathedral area in that front area. So you just want to be cognizant of that. Obviously, we have a basement fire here. So in that realm of did the fire start below us, we're in the basement. What did we say? Other than life safety for a basement fire, what's our primary size up concern that we want to do on our 360? What our secondary access to the basement is. We know we have one somewhere in that front door. You probably open up that front door, find the stairs to the second floor, work our way around those stairs, and below the stairs to the second floor is going to be the stairs to the basement. I want to know where my alternate means of access to the basement is. So I'm going to work my way around. Or am I? Yep. This is my rear. So I've got a Bilko door there. And then I have the garage here. There are some colonials that have stairs to the basement, in the garage. But if I see this Bilko door here and no one's there to tell me otherwise, I'm going to assume those are my two main entrances that I have to, decide which to use. So does anyone want to throw out, what are they going to do? Life safety, or whether it be people trapped or not, what are your thoughts on which stairs you would prefer to use in this scenario? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Fire attack, I think, would be good through that Belco door.
Okay. So,
well, being that there is two vehicles in the driveway and no one's met me at the door, I would say maybe go through the front door so I can protect the stairwell leading up into the living area.
Okay, so you go into that first floor. So are you not stretching a line, or are you just going to do a search on that second floor?
No, I'm taking a line. I'm gonna take a line with me, in the front door, and then that way, because of the cars in the driveway, I can protect the stairwell, do a primary search, and then my second in crew could actually maybe go to the outside exterior opening, and we'll communicate so that way I can maybe shut that
Okay.
stairwell off from leading into the inside of the house when
Okay.
they go to make access to the basement
Okay.
to keep from
Yeah, I got you. Absolutely. I mean, again, I think the key is to stick your head in the front door and see what conditions are like. You know, if you stick your head in that front door and it's pretty shitty, you've got to assume that maybe that door is open. The door from the basement to the first floor is open. The other thing, and there's a lot of things said in the fire service that are easier said than done, and I think a Bilko is one of them. By all means, if that's unlocked, then yeah, open it up, go down, stretch right to the fire. That's all well and good. If that Bilko is locked, do you guys carry a K12 saw on your first due engine?
yes.
You do? Okay. And then you have a set of irons. So you got to cut that Bilko door, cut that open, get that out, go down the stairs, force that door. All of that's adding a significant amount of time. So that's if everything goes smoothly with that forcible entry. So that's a consideration. If that Bilko door is locked, may not be my first choice. Steve, what do you got? Go ahead. Steve, whenever you have a chance, go ahead and ask your question.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I was trying to use the space bar. It was putting me in the
no
chat. So let's say that the Belco door is unlocked. Could you do a split crew, have two guys go inside, search, have one guy make the hit through the staircase, the pump operator come down behind him? That's your second team, and your second end engine assumes all the responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of departments are not going to let their pump operator leave the panel. So, you know, your crew of 4 may really be a crew of 3. Again, I don't personally buy into cars in the driveway being a known life hazard. I buy into it being an increased likelihood that someone's in there. But unless I had a really, really experienced crew, I'm probably not splitting up my first crew. If a mother comes out again and says, my kid's on the second floor, then by all means, I'm sending a crew up to the second floor unprotected, and I'll get water on that fire however I have to. I think splitting crews, you know, you got to basically have a secondary guy that can almost be an officer, you know. I'm not saying never, but I think it's easier said than done sometimes to split a crew unless you have the exact right crew. Does that make sense, do you think? Or is that something you guys would do often, split a crew up? You can either type or talk back, doesn't matter. But, you know, if I had 4 guys, I'm basically splitting 3 guys at that point. And then if the Bilko's locked, it's a lot more forcible entry. I think you're eating time up a lot with Bilko doors that are locked. I think it's easier said than done to say I'd force that Bilko door, go down the stairs and in. Now, if that Bilko door is unlocked, by all means, that may be your most direct route to the fire, and I'm good with it. I just think that forcing entry to a Bilko door and then a door at the bottom on stairs with restricted swing access, I think that's one of those things a little more easier said than done. Not by any means not possible, but just not as quick as you may think it'll go. But that Bilko door has to get forced 100%. No way about it, has to get forced. That may fall on the second due truck. It may fall on a later arriving engine. I have no problem with it falling on the RIT team. You know, if they get there, to me, if a guy goes down in a basement, that's going to be the best way to get them out. So I would put that on par with throwing a ladder to the second floor. Hey, go around the rear, force entry into that Bilko, so if someone goes down, we have an alternate way to get them out.
Well, what about? Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No.
What about this scenario? What about 4-man crew, officer, 2 firefighters go in the front door, inch and 3/4 line, pump operator gets everything started, pulls a 2.5 or 3-inch fog nozzle, goes to the window, the basement window that's actually showing fire, and sits on the hose line for, I don't know, a minute or two, wide fog to kind of knock that fire down while the crew's inside, and then second and engine come in and take whatever needs to be done from that point. Force the exterior exit and go from that point. That way your pump operator is there. He's not at the pump for a short period of time, but he is doing something, knocking the fire down, and then he's back at his pump, back at his panel.
Well, if you're going to do that, I think an 1 3/4 is more than capable. I don't think you need to do it 2.5 or a 3-inch or anything like that. I would not do a wide fog. I would do a smooth bore or a straight stream and put GPM on that, because a wide fog, you need water to put that out. You don't need steam or fog. So I'm not a proponent of that. But everything that you just said takes time. So I'm not saying no, but that chauffeur, he's going to have to stretch the line. He's going to have to go back to the rig. Then he's going to have to pump it. Then he's going to have to go back, and he can't adjust pressure. So he doesn't actually know how much pressure he's getting out of that. And if you haven't grabbed the hydrant, now you're stealing water from the guys that are actually inside of the house right now. So I'm not saying no. I'm not saying that that's my first option either. I would generally say I wouldn't charge a second line until I had some sort of a secondary
water supply.
Even if that's a second engine, that's something. But if I'm showing with 750 gallons, now maybe you have 2,000 on your first rig or 1,500, that's a different story. But if I show up with a 750-gallon engine, I'm probably not going to be comfortable charging more than one line if I have a crew inside there, because I don't want them to run out of water because I decided to flow from the outside for a little bit. Now, your tactics to me are fine. I have no problem I actually would probably put my second line on that outside there, okay, as an emergency line. And so if I don't have that Bilko door opened yet, my first line, to answer what am I doing, my first line is going into that front door, and that crew is going to try to make the push into the basement. And if they have any issues at all, I am going to put my second line there and be able to put out that fire if I have to. And my second engine crew is going to go do a search on that second floor with the cars in the driveway. But I'm going to put all efforts into getting that first line down into operation into that basement to put that fire out. If I'm met with someone saying that my kid's on the second floor, then by all means, I may stretch that first. I may then have one guy go put this fire out on the exterior and send the other 2 or 3 guys up to that second floor to search, if I don't have another company coming in right behind them. If I do have another company coming in right behind them, I'll probably have my first line go in that front door, start going down the stairs, and get on the radio. Engine 2, come straight in, confirmed entrapment. You guys are going straight to the second floor for search, and that's probably how I would handle that. If I had someone at a window, then by all means peel someone out, throw a ladder, and get them out. Overall, I like where you're going with putting a line at that window, because I think if at any point things go south, that kind of becomes your Control-Alt-Delete reset right there, if you can put some water into that window. But again, don't discount the fact that someone is down in the basement. You know, your victim may have, your people from those cars may have gone down to try to put that fire out and are now overcome on the basement floor. So while you have a line sitting on the top stairs and someone putting water into that fire from the outside, no one's actually going down into the basement to see if our entrapment was not someone sleeping, because they worked the night before, but because someone smelled smoke, went down there, saw the fire, tried to put it out, and now was overcome unconscious in the basement. And that's that added benefit of that first line going interior to the fire. Even if you're not doing a search, you're generally going along the main path of egress, and therefore most likely to literally crawl over a victim, find them, and be able to drag them out at that point, if that makes sense. So, but this is not by any stretch an easy scenario where we were kind of going with straightforward ones before. This is not a straightforward scenario. And this one really makes you think a little bit. And a lot of it can come down to your crew too. If I show up, if I'm the chauffeur and I've got 2 guys that just got out of Fire 1 class, you know, I'm probably more likely to have you guys stretch that line over to the B side and put some water into here. I'm not going to send two of you guys in by yourselves down to try to make a basement stair push on an advanced fire like this. So again, that may have to factor in, you know, as well. All right. Anyone else want to touch on anything else? Any other questions? I know we just kind of glaze over everything a little bit in these, but there's a lot to, you know, I mean, the sky's the limit with this software and this type of class. I mean, I can get into interior views with this. We can get into progressions. So, you know, there's a lot of different things we can do with this. So, yeah, Steve, we're going to continue doing stuff on this. So I'll talk to you after. Shoot me an email, but, I got nothing else. If you guys have any questions, like I said, I put the link. It's important to me to know what we need to do better. I've already made adjustments based on what people have said, so I do read them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, that went quick. An hour, 45 minutes, goes like that. Hope you guys got something out of it. I always learn something from these. That's why I like doing them. I learned something from these, and I hope you guys did as well. And just remember, tactics is something that, you know, at 3 a.m. tonight, I'm not going to be with you guys. So tactics is up to you guys. I'm just trying to make you guys think. It's up to you to know your staffing, your buildings, and things like that. So thank you very much, guys. Stay safe out there, and hopefully we'll do something like this again soon. So,
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
job,
you.
Dan.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.